Hi everybody, today I'm going to share a few tips to paint a watercolor wreath like this one. So my first tip is to start with a base shape to give you kind of the circular shape that you're looking for in a wreath, and the easiest way to do that is just take a bowl or a small plate or something that fits the size of the watercolor paper that you're using with, and that's round of course, and then just use a sharp pencil and trace the circle around that object. So try not to paint a pencil line that is too thick because then you might see it through your paint lines. If it is, then just erase a little bit of it, but you just want that as kind of a guideline to get you going. And then you're going to go and choose your base green color or whatever color you want to use and kind of paint leaves that go around that circular shape. But my second tip is actually maybe a little bit contradictory to my first one, but it is to follow that general shape but not follow it too closely. You want to make sure that you're painting leaves that go around the circle, some bigger, some smaller, some on one side of your circle, some on another, some that actually perfectly aligned with that circle. And basically what you're trying to recreate is what nature would look like if you were to make a lovely greenery wreath at home, and that's an organic shape with little bristles here and there, leaves of different shapes, leaves of different sizes, leaves that kind of make their own way around that circle in a lovely, inviting, festive way, but that don't look like a perfect circle. So once I've kind of gone around here and painted all those leaves and, followed that general circular shape, I'm going to go ahead and change colors. And that's actually another one of my tips, which is to vary the colors and the tones and the leaf shapes that you're using to create your wreath. And not only will that make it fun to paint that wreath, but it will also help create kind of a sense of whimsy, visual interest, of course, with colors. So here I'm using kind of a burgundy leaf color, and I think that complements the green really nicely, but also it just adds that pop of a different color that will help create a beautiful wreath. So you could use different kinds of plants. You'll see here after I'm going to paint some pine needles to add another type of greenery to my wreath, but think about the beautiful wreaths that you might be seeing during the festive season on people's doors, things that particularly caught your eye, and try to recreate them in the wreath that you're painting, and that will really just help to create a lovely looking wreath. And also if you're painting a lot of these, that's kind of the fun of it. Every time you go ahead and paint a new wreath, you can add a different element. Maybe it's a pine cone once, maybe it's using some gold elements, maybe it's using just an array of beautiful different greens if you want a really lush kind of wreath. So whatever it is, just try to vary the colors, vary the sizes, vary the types. So what I'm going to do here, once I've painted these burgundy leaves, is move on, as I was saying, to painting some pine needles. So this is much more detailed work, so it does take a little bit longer, but what I'm doing here is basically just imagining where those kind of Christmas tree branches might nestle in the midst of that wreath that already looks like a wreath. And so I'm just doing a few branches here and there, nothing too heavy, but I am just creating kind of a very thin line with a deeper green, and then I'm going ahead and doing those needles on either side, making sure that I connect those needles to the stem. But what I'm also doing is making sure that nothing looks too symmetrical here either. It's kind of the basic rule for everything in kind of the wreath, but also the kind of plant painting world. And so what I'm doing is I'm making some pine needles a bit smaller, some a little bit bigger. You can even wait for them to dry after that and go over with a bit of a darker green and add some pine needles over top if you want kind of a layering effect to make those pine needles look really thick. But what I'm doing here is just taking a look and sometimes taking a bit of a step back and seeing where I feel like I can add a pine needle without over crowding my wreath, but just adding kind of pretty visual interest all around. And what I am using is a fairly precise brush with a nice pointed tip, and that makes it pretty easy once you've dipped into your color to do a very thin kind of stem and then those pine needles on either side. And so I'm just going around my circle, and as I said, if you're not exactly sure where to place it, just start little, start one by one, and then take a big step back, maybe a cup of tea, a cup of cocoa, something to clear your mind, and then just look at where you might want to add some of those leaves. And if you do overcrowd it, that's okay. Maybe you just add a few more leaves on another side of the wreath to kind of balance it out. But if you can, start slow, because then that will make it much easier to not overcrowd it and to be happy with your placement. And then my final tip is that I usually, not always, but usually do love to add a lovely bow to my wreath, kind of a ribbon, something that would tie that wreath to a door maybe and make it extra festive. So I've done that with a burgundy color as well. If you've liked this video, I would love for you to give me a follow and a like, and thanks for watching.